This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, January 19th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Ugandan opposition presidential candidate Bobi Wine says the military raided and cordoned off his party's offices as staff were preparing a legal challenge to election results. David Doyle reports.
For those trying to see Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine, this appears to be as close as you can get. Soldiers have surrounded his compound since an election on Thursday.
So your instructions are that he's not meeting lawyers? You're not supposed to meet anyone.
Incumbent President Yoweri Museveni was declared the vote's winner. Wine says it was a victory achieved through fraud. His National Unity platform now wants to take their allegations to the Supreme Court, but speaking to Reuters by telephone on Monday, Wine said the party's offices had been raided as staff were preparing the legal challenge. Police spokesman Patrick Onyango said the office had been cordoned off for security reasons, but gave no further details. Museveni, one of Africa's longest ruling leaders, has dismissed allegations of fraud and said the election may turn out to be the most cheating-free in Uganda's history. The United States and Britain have called for investigations into reports of fraud and other issues, and NUP spokesperson Joel Sanyonyi said security forces are trying to cripple the court challenge. He arrived at Wine's home on Monday with a team of lawyers.
His home is a private home. It's not a detention facility. So anyhow, we are going to try and access him, get to meet with him. We have come with his lawyers because it's important that he gets to give his lawyers instructions on what to do next, how we get to move, how we handle all these matters going forward.
The lawyers said they were not granted access. Inside the compound, Wine, birth name Robert Chigulani, says he and his wife are under house arrest and that the military has taken control. He accuses soldiers of assaulting his wife and says they are running low on food supplies.
I am a presidential candidate and it is not a crime running against him.
The military says it surrounded Wine's home to assess potential threats and for his own safety. The law gives petitioners 20 days after results are declared to challenge them in the Supreme Court.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. A Ugandan government spokesman is accusing the United States of trying to subvert last week's presidential elections after the U.S. ambassador attempted to visit an opposition leader being held under house arrest. A U.S. embassy confirmed that Ambassador Natalie E. was stopped from visiting Bobi Wine at his residence in a suburb in the northern outskirts of the capital. The mission says Brown wanted to check on the health and safety of Wine. Ugandan spokesman Ofwono Opondo says Brown had no business visiting Wine. The sharp public rebuke to the United States from the Ugandan government is unusual as the two nations are allies. Amina Mohamed Abdi had to defy elders from her clan to first stand for parliament. Now she is one of the most visible and vocal critics of the government and is battling for a third term. Africa 54 managing editor Benson McCory reports.
Today, Amina Mohamed Abdi is one of the most visible and vocal critics of Somalia's government. But when she first stood for parliament in 2012, aged 24, it was in defiance of elders from her Yoweri clan.
You wanted to be a prostitute. How can a woman can represent a clan? I insisted and said a clan is not composed of men only.
With an overdue election tentatively scheduled for next month, Abdi is gearing up to fight for a third term, the only woman in a field of 6 candidates contesting the same seat. That's after winning that first election in a seat reserved for women and an open seat 4 years later. But her interest in politics was sparked much earlier.
I was growing up during civil war. made me wanted to enter politics to help rebuild my country. I remember coming home from school as an 8 years old to find my house empty and my family fled after fighting broke out. Everywhere there was gunshots and mortar shells were landing.
Being brought up in a country without a government, she says, emphasized how important the state is for ensuring children get their basic rights such as security, clean water and a decent education. Abdi is one of 81 women lawmakers in the 275-seat legislative chamber and is a member of the opposition Union and Peace for Development Party. She has become known for speeches labeling the government as corrupt and incapable of protecting Somalia's 15 million people, accusations it denies. Elections were due in December but have been delayed after the opposition accused President Mohamed Abdullah Mohamed of packing the electoral board with his allies. The postponement sparked protests in Mogadishu, and the opposition has threatened to boycott the rescheduled vote if the electoral board is not disbanded. Talks are ongoing, but the vote, scheduled for February 8th, is almost certain to be delayed. Vincent McCory, VOA News.
Wednesday, the United States will inaugurate its next president, Joe Biden, in Washington, D.C., following the violent assault on the Capitol earlier this month by supporters of outgoing President Donald Trump. Americans are bracing for the worst, but hoping for unity, the theme of Biden's inauguration. Michael Sullivan reports.
Massive security for the nation's most important ceremony, held every 4 years, the inauguration of a president, with a military presence in Washington not seen since the Civil War. In the House of Representatives, outgoing President Donald Trump was impeached for a second time last week. Biden's inauguration theme, America United, a challenging goal. Up to 25,000 National Guard troops have been called in, and additional police. A former chief of the Capitol Police tells VOA the security situation is safe.
The planning for that has been going on for over a year, as it was when I ran some of those operations. And there'll be some 5,000 law enforcement officers from the United States to be brought in the counties to supplement the Secret Service, the FBI, and the Capitol Police. I am confident the inauguration of the next president of the United States will come off smoothly.
Safe and socially distanced. Much of the celebration will be virtual, hosted by Tom Hanks, with entertainers that include Lady Gaga and Jennifer Lopez. Much of Washington will be closed, with flags representing the hundreds of thousands of people who usually come in person. There have been protests in state capitals, and extra security is expected in all 50. A recent poll says 3/4 of Americans fear violence in coming days. One woman says the tensions are worsened by politicians who are often unresponsive to the nation's needs.
And I think that people often get really disconnected from the communities they claim to represent. So I think it's broken.
Two friends, flight attendants who disagree politically, agree on one thing. Americans need to come together.
The right is going way, way over here to the right, and the left is going way, way over here to the left.
And that's where I agree with her. I think the right's too right, and I think the left is too left.
Among Biden's challenges, a belligerent North Korea, recently parading new weaponry in this unverified video from North Korean state television. Domestic challenges include soaring COVID infections, high unemployment, and political divisions.
Important thing is we want to move forward.
And many hope unify the country. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News.
At least 15,000 armed National Guard troops will provide support for U.S. Capitol security before and during the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden on January 20th. Daria DeGoots has more on the National Guard and its role.
From natural catastrophes to protests and military operations, the National Guard, the U.S. Military Reserve Force, is mobilized in an array of situations domestically and abroad. The men and women of the reserve hold civilian jobs, some working as doctors, engineers, office workers, and students. But when there is an emergency, National Guard troops can be called to serve both community and country at a moment's notice. It is an idea as old as the U.S. Constitution.
Many of the drafters of the Constitution wanted to not even create a standing army at all, and just rely on what were sort of called citizen soldiers, the farmers who would, when the call went up, would leave their farms, take a musket, and ride to the rescue.
Today, National Guard candidates must be at least 17 years old and not older than 35. They are required to train at least 1 weekend a month and take a 2-week prep course once a year.
It offers them a chance to serve the nation without joining the military full time. And so, it probably is a little bit less popular as an option after the deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, but still there are a great number of people who decide that they want to serve the nation and still be at home having their regular jobs.
The U.S. has 54 National Guard units, 1 in each state, plus the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. Both state governors and the U.S. President can mobilize them at any time. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, they have been helping at hospitals and testing facilities.
It's part of my job. It's something I love doing. I joined the military for a reason. I joined to help back and give back to my community and to give back to my country.
Though the National Guard has military training, they rarely carry arms for domestic operations.
Especially after the events in early 1970, when armed guard troops under the control of the Ohio state governor fired on people at a protest, an anti-war protest during the Vietnam War at Kent State University, there has been a profound reluctance on the part of Guard leaders and the Department of Defense to have the U.S. National Guard units carry weapons.
On January 6th, National Guard troops deployed to Washington, D.C. after pro-Trump rioters attacked the U.S. Capitol. Since then, the Pentagon has announced at least 15,000 armed National Guard troops will provide security support around the U.S. Capitol area in the days leading up to the January 20 inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. Daria D. VOA News, Washington.
The last few months in the United States have been marked by acrimony and violence, with scores of Americans unable to accept President-elect Joe Biden's election win. VOA's Caroline Persutti introduces us to the 78-year-old man who will lead the U.S. for the next 4 years.
It took 4 days of uncertain election results until Joe Biden could announce this.
The people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory.
Although President Donald Trump would continue to question the results, rallying his supporters in what ultimately led to a riot at the U.S. Capitol. The Capitol is now a fortress, the inauguration stage far from any spectators. A massive police presence includes 25,000 members of the National Guard. In contrast to President Trump, a businessman before he took office, President-elect Biden is an experienced politician.
I'm going to say something outrageous. I know how to make government work.
Biden has held elective office for nearly 50 years. He spent 2 terms as President Barack Obama's vice president.
Mr. President, we have to put an end to this.
Prior to that, Delaware voters elected him 6 times to the U.S. Senate. A month after his first election, his wife and baby daughter were killed in a car crash that left his 2 young sons badly injured. Senator Biden would ride the Amtrak train 90 minutes from Washington to Delaware each night to be with his sons. The Wilmington Amtrak station is named after him. Biden has had 2 brain surgeries to repair aneurysms. In 2015, when he was vice president, his older son, Beau, died of brain cancer. Biden and his wife, Jill, a college professor, live in Wilmington, Delaware, a city of 70,000 that is now the home of the president-elect. Motorcades and sharpshooters now line the city streets. Buck Simpers is a lifelong resident.
It's not stopping anything. It's just a matter of being a bit patient and being honored at the same time.
Residents here call the president-elect their hometown boy, who likes milkshakes and cheesesteaks. Longtime associate Bob Byrd is used to seeing Biden behind the wheel of his convertible 1967 sports car.
He's got a vintage Corvette, and you'll see him driving it around every now and then. Yes, he does like to drive.
Now at age 78, the oldest president ever elected is readying for his toughest political challenge yet, steering a divided nation into the future. Carolyn Presutti, VOA News, Washington.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, an African doctor talks about her experience getting the COVID-19 vaccine. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Africa 54. With just 1 day left before President-elect Joe Biden takes oath of office as the 46th U.S. president, let's look at how the transition from Trump to Biden compares with past U.S. presidential inaugurations. I sought the insight of VOA's News Center executive producer, Steve Reddish.
It's not as smooth as it was in previous inaugurations. Usually the outgoing president participates and attends the inauguration. Usually the outgoing president hosts the incoming president over at the White House, and they have something to eat, some tea, and talk, and then go up to Capitol Hill together for the inauguration. Usually the outgoing president leaves a handwritten note, a personal touch that speaks volumes about how cherished a peaceful transition of power, a smooth handover is for America and American democracies. That whatever differences there were between presidents, the outcome of the election is the final word, and everybody moves on. That feeling of continuity is more communal than it is constitutional, and that's what's missing from this transition.
Thinking about the economic impact of COVID-19, what should the incoming administration prioritize to revive America's economy?
Biden has many challenges, and the first and the overarching challenge is getting COVID under control. Vaccine is going to help, but getting all Americans to take the virus seriously, to adapt their behavior, wear masks, socially distance, will be one of the biggest challenges he faces in the first months, in the first year of the presidency. Getting COVID under control, he sees, is key to getting people back to work, opening schools, getting other community institutions, libraries, and the such open, and then that will open businesses and lift the economy back up. He's going to be challenged to get legislation passed. He's got a slim majority in the House of Representatives and has no margin for error in trying to win votes in the U.S. Senate. He's going to be pushed from within the Democratic Party to be more progressive, especially on issues such as voting rights and justice reform and healthcare reform and building on Obamacare. So Biden is going to be walking a political tightrope from the moment he returns to the White House, as he tries to get what he can through Congress And then all the time, he's going to have former President Donald Trump making his presence known and felt, and continuing to argue that the election was stolen from him, and questioning the legitimacy of Biden's presidency. So it's going to be it's going to be a challenge for President Biden once he takes office.
Where do you see the United States relationship with other countries during this Biden administration?
I think the United States is going to be back in various different multinational organizations with a presence that it used to have before the Trump administration came in. I would expect on day one that President Biden has the U.S. rejoin the World Health Organization, because that and cooperation with health organizations is going to be key for the president to get COVID under control, both here and then once the United States gets under control, then help the rest of the world. We will see the United States be much more involved both in Asia, alliances, as well as European alliances, NATO and ASEAN. And I think that we will see basically the Biden administration going back to a place, as far as foreign policy is concerned, where the Obama administration was before it left, and then in other areas as well, because Biden was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He took a specific interest in how the United States relates with the rest of the world. And I think you'll see a lot of differences from how the State Department operates and how the United States deals with multinational organizations starting on January 20th.
On Wednesday's Africa 54, I will speak to Ngozi Bell, an African economic and political analyst, to get her perspective on what Africa's relationship with the incoming Biden administration should look like. In our health report, COVID-19 vaccines are being rolled out around the world, including here in the United States. Vaccine hesitance or vaccine skepticism remain an important challenge. However, for some people who received the vaccine, getting the shot was not a hard decision to make. Africa 54 health correspondent Leno Mudu spoke with Dr. Mary Banda, an internal medicine specialist in Boston, Massachusetts, who has received the COVID-19 vaccine. She talks about her experience.
To have a vaccine that can possibly create herd immunity and prevent this virus from attacking us is amazing.
So for someone like you who's in the medical field, we know that usually vaccine takes time to develop, sometime up to 10 years, sometime even longer, sometime less than 10 years, of course. What are your thoughts in terms of the way this vaccine have been developed, what some people consider to be rushed?
The population needs to understand that RNA work has been ongoing for years and years and years. And the scientists already had that background knowledge of what the technology can do. When the coronavirus epidemic came in, they had background information to now produce a vaccine. Just because it came out faster doesn't mean that it's no good. We have better technology. We have a lot of scientists now. The world has rallied to come up with an intervention, and I think all combined has led to a faster production of the vaccine.
This may be like an obvious answer, but why did you decide to get vaccinated?
I've seen such mortality as a physician, as a family member, as a friend. I've lost friends. In order for me to even be able to render any intervention or assistance, I felt better protected by getting the vaccine. And I also feel like I am possibly a person that can also spread the virus if I'm not vaccinated. So I'm in a position to prevent other people from getting the virus and also to intervene as far as my knowledge and expertise in assisting with the care of those who do. And being comfortable doing that, those healthcare workers and frontliners who are not vaccinated are at a tremendous risk for infection. And we've seen so many of them die because of being at work. So all those have really encouraged me to do the right thing. I've also read about the vaccinations, and I'm well versed with what they can do.
What vaccine did you take? Did you have a choice, given that there is more than one vaccine?
So I was offered Pfizer, and I took Pfizer. And basically, we went in and were registered. And then we were vaccinated, and then you had to wait 15 minutes before you left the premise to make sure that you didn't have any side effects or reactions. I took the first one, and then I was given an appointment to come back in 21 days to take the second one.
So what do you say to those who are skeptical?
Our experience to date with the coronavirus is that it's dangerous, it's highly infectious, and the mortality is high. So when you do not take a vaccine that might prevent all this, I think you're making a big mistake, one. Secondly, the vaccine, this particular vaccine is made out of RNA. So it's not going to give you the coronavirus, which is what most people have understood, that when you take the vaccine, they inject coronavirus into you. When that RNA goes in and attacks the protein, it does not enter the cells. So you do not have the possibility of that vaccine really damaging your cell structure or changing the genetics of who you are. And people need to understand that that is a conspiracy theory that's not proven in the scientific world. You can certainly get a lot of side effects from the vaccine, and some people have. Some people have had even worse side effects. I mean, usually you get aches and high temperatures and headaches and so forth. When you look at the benefits of the vaccine, it certainly outweighs getting the coronavirus. And the side effects are tolerable and they are temporary. They go away. Sometimes it might be a long duration, but they go away.
Dr. Mary Banda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That was Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking with Dr. Mary Banda, an internal medicine specialist in Boston, Massachusetts. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.